name's Anna May, and I'm a forester in the fourth generation of the Starker family. The Starker forest started in 1936 by my great-grandfather, T.J. Starker, and it's been in the family ever since, going to my grandfather, Bruce, and then my dad and uncle, Bart and Bond, and now me and my brother and a couple of my cousins are also involved in the business. The Starker Lecture Series started as a way to honor TJ as well as Bruce, because they're both really interested in forums for debate and new ideas in forestry. After they both passed away, the family thought it'd be a good way to carry on their legacy.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Julie Woodward with the Oregon Forest Resources Institute. I'm also the alumni of the OSU College of Forestry. I'm excited today to be part of the Starker Lecture Series with OSU. And this year's series focuses on the resilience in the face of disturbance, learning from disasters. Natural disturbances and disasters have a long history of presenting opportunities for society to learn, adapt, and thrive. The multiple disasters and challenges of the year have proven the need for society to be resilient, learn, and adapt to new realities. This year's Starker Lecture Series focuses on how communities, industries, and organizations across the forest landscape have responded to recent and previous disasters, shown resilience in the face of adversity, and are ready to play critical roles in creating a better future. The session today on education focuses on an exploration on the impacts of disturbances on students through various stages of K-16 and into the workforce. We will then look at how current college students are recruited and taught in a virtual world and what opportunities are they finding next. This panel will focus on what's happening here in our state. We're keeping it very local. Whether dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic or devastating wildfires, this past year has forced all of us to overcome and look at new ways to live, work, and educate. We're excited to share this time with you. If you have questions, please post those in the Q&A button. We will have time at the end of the presentation today to have some Q&A time. If you're also needing SAF credits during the Q&A session, we'll announce a keyword in the chat. And please send your name, address, email address, and CF number along with the keyword to the email that'll be listed there. Often when we think about education, we think about, maybe this image comes to mind, the learning that happens inside of four walls. The Starker Lecture Series takes inspiration from the Starker family's history of leadership and of teaching, and oftentimes they help us think about forests as amazing classrooms. The OSU College of Forestry and OFRE are also part of this partnership of thinking about forests as these amazing classrooms and helping to promote and educate Oregonians about forest. The Starker family has a long tradition of using education as an outreach and making it an integral part of their business. And so they do elementary school field trips, public tours, community events for youth and families. The Starker Forest provide free recreational permits for their community, tours to different user groups, and even a tree planting day where young and old go out together and plant that next generation of trees. They've been part of helping provide workforce trainings and field trips, summer internship programs, and guest lectures at OSU. And traditionally, we would have been also out for maybe some tours for these Starker Lecture Series. Although we appreciate everyone coming today and joining us in what is a little bit different look than typical. The Oregon Forest Resources Institute, also our whole entity is about education. We were created by the legislature in 1991. And really we do education through public outreach, through landowner education, and through K-12. And today we're gonna focus on that K-12 and what does it mean? And a year ago, it meant a lot of different things, but then 2020 came along. And 2020 has made education really stop and pause and think about what does education look like and how does it feel? You may be one of those people who have maybe some young educators with you now as you're out working, or you're a teacher that are now educating through those screens. Many of us were used to going out in the field with students and school groups and thinking about how do we educate alongside those. We all probably have those stories now of hearing whether our colleague or if it's you, your student, your kids, maybe interrupting one of those meetings or presentations. So 2020 has put a different face on what education is. And that's what we want to explore today during this series is what does that look like? And what are some amazing things that we've done to maybe make learning about forests at home? And I'm going to start with our agency, but we have many partners around the state that I just want to give you a snapshot of what we've been doing, just to have you think about that this is really a passionate and resilient group, people that want to connect people with Oregon's forest and think ways that we've taken it and now connecting them at home, or maybe still in their classroom, or those classrooms look different. OFRE's always had a whole series of publications all the way from K through 12, aligned to state standards and instructional guides. This was an opportunity for us to think about how do we also present those to parents or to those different classrooms or homeschools, and how do they take those out and use them. Natural resource journals, we learned in the last Starker lecture series about more families are out recreating. What are the opportunities to deliver journals and people fill them out with tablets or even take them on print? We're part of the Oregon Garden Rediscovery Forest, where you can come here and use the journals, or hopefully you're going out and visiting a forest near you or anywhere there's a tree. So we're still seeing people wanting that connection with natural resources, but the learning in the forest may look different. We also know sometimes, maybe people can even go further and more in depth. So the tree carbon tape, where they can talk about the tangible sense of the amount of carbon stored by Oregon forest, or teachers can use it in classrooms, or this can be both a craft and a tool. So really, this sector of forestry education has been innovative about how they're looking at responding. And we know these high school students have been really impacted. And high school students, we're used to being that social, having these natural resource career development events. And so those have even gone virtual. We're looking at, virtual events where they can still work together, but then also be able to do these career development events. And so last year, Oregon Envirothon went virtual, and here's the winning team from Amity High School. It was the first time winning. And we found ways to still celebrate and really help them, think about all these career pathways that they may have in the future through natural resources. One of our partners is Talk About Trees, and this is a great group that's statewide. They typically see over 100,000 students. And how did they pivot? What did they do to continue being able to share their passion about Oregon's forests into the classrooms? And so they found ways to do small groups outside, socially distanced, or really they got creative on how they were delivering that virtually into those classrooms, all sorts of creativity happening. Outdoor school, we know is important to Oregonians. We know that outdoor school is something that is kind of like a rite of passage, often our 5th and 6th grade students. And so the Extension Service Outdoor School really pivoted and really looked at how to help develop. They developed these kits that went out to thousands of students around the state. Students are decorating wood cookies, dissecting owl pellets on their dining room tables, testing the pH of puddles. A lot of creativity is happening here. They're even finding ways to bring these well-loved outdoor school traditions like campfire songs and skits that have gone virtual. Camp Tamarack's a great example of keeping on their staff and helping to figure out how to make this outdoor school fun, virtual, and learning. And they've been delivering over and over again each time to bring that experience to students. Port Blakely, often out of Clackamas County area, has students out on their trails and forest, and they were really missing this social engagement with their communities. And so they looked to be innovative, and they developed what's called the Neighborwood, talking about what they're doing, but also inviting the public in and be engaged with what their outreach. They've also taken their programs online, their education teams looking at ways of, they bring in videos and slides, active games, engaging questions and challenges. And we know this is true for teachers across the state. And the Oregon Natural Resource Education Program, housed at OSU and funded by OFRE, is is really being innovative on how they're reaching teachers and how they're supporting teachers, not only formal and non-formal, but really how do we help acknowledge and support that this is a hard time for Oregon educators, but we know we have tools and we know we're innovative and we know they have a passion for educating their students. And so how can we help equip facilitators and teachers to design and implement virtual workshops and be engaged? And amazing so far this year, they've, in this last 2020 and 21, they've already reached 750 educators, which if you think about the number of impact of students, that's over 20,000. They continue to think about not only delivering about forestry and natural resources, but making sure all Oregonians have that availability to the environmental literacy and share our natural resources equitably. And so they're providing those resources to educators and families. And they're also thinking about those social and emotional learning strategies and the trauma-informed care in all our workshops, as we know that's impacted a lot of our state. Forest Today and Forever is down in Lane County, and they're continually have a long tradition of taking students out. This was pre-COVID, out into the field, those 4th and 5th graders, and engaging them with forestry professionals at all different stations. And they've turned to online and looking at things like these choice boards and ways to really engage the students and the classrooms in a lot of different conversations. Forestry Forever is also part of putting on a program for high school students about career choices called What is Good? And Forestry Forever really understands that the future workforce is such an important part and an extenuation of the education. How can we help find this next workforce of 60,000 diverse people with different skills that we need in order for this sector? And really thinking about this pathway and how these different people in these careers got there. And for many of them, it starts in the K-12 and the K-16 system. And it brings them to the point of being innovative, resilient, and many of them are looking for that next workforce to be part of these innovations, to build your houses and homes and schools and businesses, to plant that next generation of forest. And maybe even if you remember during the pandemic, this rekindled some of our need for these necessity products. So really, it's a connection between K-12, college, university, and the workforce. And that's what we're going to talk about today in this panel, is those pathways for students and how they're connecting and each part of these groups and how they connect to one another. And so I'm excited today for our first speaker is Dr. Riddle Gardner, and he is from the Oregon Department of Education. And when you talk about finding that in the spark in the classroom, that was Reynold. And so Dr. Riddle Gardner joined the secondary and post-secondary student transitions team from the Oregon Department of Education's Office of Learning in 2008 and is responsible for the natural resources, forestry, agriculture, and career areas. Additionally, he works on the Federal Perkins Career Technical Education Grant Fiscal Management Team with the Oregon Department of Education. And Reynold's a licensed CTE teacher for the state of Oregon and has spent 12 years within the classrooms at the secondary and university level prior to coming to work at the Oregon Department of Education. Reynold takes pride in the fact that he's a product of the system and found academic success through the foundation provided within the agricultural, natural resource, and career and technical education classroom. He's one of those students that a teacher led that spark to help find his pathway. He graduated from OSU with a Bachelor's of Science, Master's of Science, and a PhD in teacher leadership. So I'm excited for Reynold to join us today and give us a perspective from the Oregon Department of Education. Thanks, Reynold. Oh, I see we have Reynold's screen up. Do we have, Reynold, are you still on there?
There we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that, Julie. I always double mute myself and I forgot to undouble mute myself. Julie, you should just continue with your conversation because you're hitting on so many of the elements of K through 16 education on the natural resource perspective. And I'm here to talk about the Department of Education and career technical education and the growth that's happening within. And I am very excited to be part of this panel. I'm very appreciative to Oregon State University, the College of Forestry, for the Starker family, the legacy that the Starker family is continuing to proliferate forward, and the Starker Lecture Series in providing these opportunities for students, for professionals, for academics to come together and engage in a conversation to further the knowledge around this career profession. So in that, within the conversation that I want to share today, the resilience in the face of disturbance and learning from this disaster, the impact from this disaster, both the fires and COVID, we had teachers and students lose their homes. A very close friend of mine, teacher, home was destroyed in Southern Oregon. Students' projects, students' summer livelihood was displaced. And the disruptions of COVID, and those are all well documented. But what I do want to share and shine the spotlight on is how natural resource and forestry career technical education programs have overcome those obstacles and continue to be a shining light as far as how the educational system can wrap around and evolve through these. So a lot of my conversation today is going to be around career technical education. And in career technical education, it's often abbreviated as CTE, not the concussion thing, but CTE, career and technical education. And I have a couple highlighted words, and I'm going to come back to this theme later on in my conversation, but what CTE provides to students is a context for real-world learning. And as a teacher in my classrooms, as a professional, as well as a student, I would ask that question, where is this important? Why are we studying these things? And there was a researcher out there who actually was very involved with the Bill Gates educational initiative back in the 90s and early 2000s, where the Bill and Melinda Gates invested billions of dollars in trying to help reform and reinvigorate schools. And his research identified that career technical education provides the relevance for students to persist in difficult subjects. So they found that CTE students were doing better academically, they were doing better engagement-wise in school, had a higher attendance rate, and overall engagement in the system. And he later surmised that CTE's ultimate accomplishment is creating relationships for those students through a career mentor or the student leadership opportunities that the CTE programs are built around. And then in that, he additionally revealed that, which has been validated with other studies, is that CTE students succeed at a higher rate within the college and university environments when they move forward. So this is a little bit of what CTE is, the career areas specific instruction that occurs in an organized fashion. Well, Dr. Daggett in the 90s and early 2000s put forth this information. Well, during the recession, when things slowed down within the state of Oregon, there were still industries that were having a difficult time finding skilled laborers, skilled workforce. And in that, a push began in 2011 during a recession legislative session to help to bring back career technical education. And I have some data, and the data shows it's from the early 2000s, and this is the data set that was used for the Measure 98 initiative to help to get more career technical education in the school systems. Career technical education students graduate at a higher rate, and the most recent data from the Department of Education was just released a couple weeks ago, that CTE students are still graduating at that 15 percentage points higher than non-CTE students. And these are students who have enrolled and taken and have earned 1 credit within career technical education. Additionally, as you look across all demographics, career technical education students graduate at a higher rate. In addition, there's another slide, I don't have it in this slide set, that shows CTE helps students who are language disadvantaged, who are special needs as far as their learning spectrum, and poverty. CTE has a way to connect and get those students further on their graduation career path. Well, that led to a lot of internal investment within the state of Oregon. The voters in 2016 passed Measure 98, which added $300 million towards the educational process to create more natural resource programs. Since that time, early 2011 forward, we have had a continued growth within the natural resource forestry programs. And specifically, we have 197 school districts in the state of Oregon. Some of the school districts have multiple high schools. A lot of school districts have a single school building for K through 12 schooling. We have 37 natural resource programs. If we go back to 2011, we only had 6 CTE programs that were approved by the Department of Education. So there's been this rapid growth within the natural resource forestry side. Additionally, the agriculture programs that are out there have maintained right in that 100 to 115 threshold for agriculture programs over the same course of time. And agriculture programs also infuse natural resource instruction, natural resource education, even courses titled forestry or environmental science. So we have 150 high school programs within the state that are offering sequential guided instructions around natural resource forestry. These are all programs that Ofri and Julie and Nori work with extensively at Ofri in providing resources, professional development, student activity enhancements and supports. And I just can't say enough about the support of what Ofri does for these organized programs of study. Now, I just dropped some language that's called program of study. What I want you to understand is a program of study is a guided sequence. It's not just a free elective around natural resources or forestry. It is a intentional course sequence that's tied to content that is based upon industry standards. They have to have a college partner and look at ways to enhance the students transferring from the high school to the college to the university. They have work-based learning opportunities and industry certifications. Within the natural resource spectrum, there's not a lot of industry certifications. One that we do have that we embolden with is the S130, S190 wildland fire. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And then guiding students along their career path. What are the career plan, career purpose around moving them forward? Teachers have to have sequential organized professional development, not just attending a workshop for one day, but it's a professional development that's on a continuum. Ofri provides support on that. And then teacher licensure is a requirement to teach within these high school career technical education programs. And they're connected to a college. So these are colleges and high schools. My verbiage is they're in a relationship. They're married together. They are expected to provide collegial professional development around what is the instructional standards that the college and the university and these students need to be prepared for as they advance down their career path. So the career flow, high school programs. The high school programs additionally reach out and work with the middle school and the elementary programs. The outdoor school, which is an awesome program, a number of the natural resource programs, students function as mentors for the outdoor school efforts within different counties. So this flow, this track, this advancing students down that career path and career opportunities is what it is about. Giving students this hands-on. Now, in this last year of disaster, a lot of these student activities were displaced or shrunk in scope and sequence or went on virtual. But the natural resource programs, through the student leadership group of future natural resource leaders, they were able to amend, to alter, to take their activities towards giving online virtual activities that give them focus. So despite of the disruption of the disasters that have occurred, learning is still happening. And some of the true academics out there are going to argue that learning along the college track continuum is not occurring, and math is not happening, the language arts isn't happening, and I would attest in helping my own children in their schooling that they're not learning what they had previously learned within their school track. But I would argue is students are learning probably at a greater rate right now as they're going through these activities, and they're gaining an anchor point, a reflective point. If you were to ask me what happened in 2017 in your personal life, Reynold, I would have to rack back and say, okay, what happened? Which one of my children was close to graduation? What were the transitional moments in 2020? There are many, many anchor dates. Evacuating my own family from our property because we were in the line path of the Beachy Creek fire that was coming down. So that had a direct impact. The day schools were canceled. So these elements and reflective points are things that students can anchor learning around. And student mentorship through this time is needed now more than ever. And career technical education programs are set up to help to provide that. And the natural resources and the regenerative process that everybody that's part of this conversation is well aware of, the natural resources are going to bounce back and we're going to see the regrowth. But I'm here to testify that the natural resource students are emboldened by the resurgence of the natural resources and seeing what happened. So I live adjacent to Silverton, not very far from Scotts Mills, but the efforts that the community members stepped forward to help to quell that fire that was streaming down the canyons towards communities and homes gives me goosebumps as I'm speaking to you about it. The sense of the natural resource community overcame the tragedies and the obstacles. That bond occurs within the natural resource programs, both at the college and at the high school level, in preparing students down this career path. So that resilience. So during this disruption that occurred, the virtual events continued. We had a virtual Envirothon. Going back to March, when that happened, we're like, is it possible? Is it possible to have student hands-on learning activities through a virtual scenario? We adapted, we modified, even looking forward to this upcoming year's Envirothon with the current restrictions in place, we're still rallying to make that happen. The FNRL, Future Natural Resource Leaders, and the FFA are having their virtual forestry, career development events, and they continue. Virtual state conferences, virtual state conventions are occurring with FNRL and FFA. So additionally, this disruption has caused leaders in local communities to say, what are our resources that we can utilize to invoke, to create opportunities coming out of this? And in two areas of the state, both in Lane County and the Rogue Valley, they are working with the Future Natural Resource Leaders Group and creating high school opportunities for students to go through their S-130 and S-190 training, working with the interagency partners and giving those students that exposure. Yes, to get your red card and to go fight wildfire, you need to be 18. But these students will have had their preparation along the way and going through fire school simulation and giving them actual line building, trail building, and within that S130, not S139, a typo by Riddle Gardner. Very good. So working in providing that training. So Lane County and the Rogue Valley are working with the local high schools to help to make this happen. So coming out of this tragedy, there's a lot of attention being focused in on our resources, how are we managing them, and how can we utilize our students as a career force for that. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation and other conversations that are happening in the States to say we have students that are hungry and ready to advance into the careers that are available and are going to be pressing here in the very short term. And we are in a reactive space that we have enough programs. We need more, but we have programs in place to make it happen. And additionally, we need more teachers. So some of the folks that are online, if you're interested in teaching, give me a call and we'll find a way, because there's school systems that are saying we're looking for an industry expert to come in and represent the natural resource in forestry. One other element I do want to add as I bring this to a close is the professional development. And for the industry partners that are on this call, your supports and efforts in providing professional development towards our teachers is invaluable. Our teachers come from industry. They have to have 2,000 hours of industry exposure before they can become a CTE teacher. If they don't have that exposure, they have to go through some guided training, guided exposure experience. Additionally, all of the required programs, so the 37 programs plus the 113 agriculture programs, they have required industry advisory committees. As industry partners, education, career technical education is hungry for the engagement of your expertise, your knowledge, your exposure. It's not about the money. We need your knowledge base and understanding of the industry to help to keep our programs current and what is expected. So the resilience of the natural resource systems. CTE provides students with the context that shows them the relevance that they will persist in a very difficult learning environment. And the relationships that are formed through mentorships, industry partners working with our high school teachers connecting students into that. The natural resource FNRL, Future Natural Resource Leaders, and the FFA helps to champion that model. I'll be around for the questions. I know the questions are going to come at the end. I appreciate this opportunity. It has been a difficult year. We have had some tremendous growth and excitement around natural resources and forestry, and I expect that to continue. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Starker family.
Thanks, Reynold. Appreciate those insights into the high school programs and really, a great overview about things that are happening. We know it's been a difficult year for educators and those that are trying to engage with those students on a daily basis. If you have questions for Reynold, please put those in the Q&A chat in the bottom, and we will, at the end of the next set of presentations, have time hopefully to answer those. If you have other questions, for Oregon Department of Education, if Reynold can't find those, he can help connect you with the right people there. So please send those questions in. Now I'd like to transition to, we have a whole suite of presenters from the College of Forestry, our recent alumni, and I'm really excited. Here's the Starker Lecture Series. It's hosted by OSU College of Forestry, and often we don't spend some time really diving deep into what those programs are about, how we recruit, and then we wanted an opportunity to talk about how have we transitioned, how has the college transitioned during this time, and then what are those students doing? How are they getting jobs during a pandemic? So I'm really excited for this conversation today, and I'm going to introduce all four of the OSU folks representing today, and then they're going to transition one from another. So I'm going to start with Shannon Harwood, and she's the manager of the Student Engagement College of Forestry, and Shannon joined Oregon State University in 2013. and I spent the last 3 years administering the College of Forestry's ambitious undergraduate recruitment plan. Shannon also manages the College of Forestry Student Ambassador Program and serves on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee. Hailing from upstate New York, Shannon now lives in Corvallis, traditional Kalapuya territory, with her spouse, 2 dogs, and several waterproof jackets, as all Oregonians should. Nicole Kent is the Manager of Advising and Academic Relations at the College of Forestry. And Nicole Kent is in her 17th year at OSU and 7th as Manager of Advising and Academic Relations for OSU's College of Forestry. She leads the College of Forestry Student Services team in their support of 1,000 undergraduate students. In addition to her work at OSU, Nicole has led leadership positions with NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising. Most recently, she was invited to consult on the creation of nationwide principles for academic advising for the Advising Success Network. Mariel King is a recent graduate in the College of Forestry and is out now with the Coos County Soil and Water Conservation District. And Mariel was born in Texas and raised on the farmlands of Missouri before her family moved to Oregon in 2012. She has fallen in love with both the land and the people in Oregon, and she decided to make it her life's mission to foster a sustainable relationship between the great people and incredible land and resources they steward. To help achieve this goal, she went to Oregon State University and received her bachelor's degree in natural resources and a minor in sustainability. Graduating in 2020 during the pandemic, she accepted a position at the Coos Soil and Water Conservation District, where she currently works as a watershed technical specialist, and she implements and manages restoration and monitoring projects to improve water quality and lands within Coos County. And rounding out with Wade Christensen, who's a student with Sustainable Forestry Management at the College of Forestry. And Wade grew up in Southern Oregon in a small timber community, and then he joined the Army and immediately after high school. We appreciate he served 23 years in the career as an Army Green Beret, and through his military career, he traveled the world and deployed 6 times to combat zones in the support of the global war on terror. After a career in special operations, he knew a typical office job would not be a good fit for his career, for that second career. He first attended Umpqua Community College's forestry program and then finished his bachelor's degree in forest management from OSU. He has recently been accepted into a graduate program to pursue a master's in sustainable forest management. So excited to hear what they all have to share today, and we're going to start with Shannon.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you to Reynold. Thank you to the Starker family, and really appreciate Oregon State for giving my colleagues and I an opportunity to speak to you all and share our experience. So in beginning this, we really want to acknowledge that Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon is located within the traditional homelands of the Mariel River or Impinifu Band of the Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. For my portion of this presentation, I'm really going to be focusing on the recruitment offerings and enrollment management for the OSU College of Forestry. And so to give you a sense of the baseline, we have a really hands-on approach to our undergraduate recruitment. And so a lot of time is spent outside of the city of Corvallis, and a lot of that work is done by myself. So I have traveled to a lot of those schools that Reynold talked about with natural resources programs, in classrooms doing programming with the students. I also visit our fantastic community college partners to present to their students and cover almost every region of Oregon, as well as some of our neighboring states. We also bring a lot of that recruitment home to Corvallis and our campus at OSU. And so we offer on-campus tours every single week for students and their families. We also host events in the McDonald Dunn Research Forest to really get students out there in the field, seeing what gets us and our students excited about forestry and natural resources. We also have some customized events depending on the population as well as the place that students are at in their decision-making process. So some of those are events specific to admitted students, like our Orange and Black Day event for them and their families, as well as hosting K through 12 group field trips with customized programming depending on what they're learning in class. And all of this is supported by a structure of remote deliverables. So we have targeted email campaigns to different populations of students. We also have posted mail campaigns, including postcards, as well as some swag mailing for some of our admitted and high achieving students. We have an online major discovery tool, which functions very similarly to a quiz, where after answering a few questions, students can see a list of options for their major that might interest them the most. And we also provide a web presence through ads and social media. All right, and then COVID happened. And so as you can see on this slide, our recruitment offerings have had to look very different. No longer are we able to go outside Corvallis, no longer are we able to really host events and presentations and programming in the way that we used to. And so we've really been relying on that structure of remote deliverables, which have really just amped up since last year, as well as having more and more offerings on Zoom. And so we offer our appointments, our tours, our presentations, our mock lectures, all virtually on the Zoom environment. And with that, we've learned a few things. And so the first thing we've learned is something I'm sure you all have learned. We are not the only ones tired of Zoom. Our prospective students are annually bombarded by colleges and universities, by marketing materials, by outreach, and a lot of that has had to move to Zoom for everybody. And so in answering that, we in the College of Forestry have really tried to find ways to give students the information they need about our programs to make a good decision about OSU and the College of Forestry without adding to that Zoom fatigue. So these are a few things we've been doing. One that's been great is coming up with more asynchronous content. Things where students can watch on their own time. They don't have to have their video on. They don't have to be kind of on or plugged in for. This includes the major discovery tool. We've increased our ad spending on that, as well as creating video content. So we have a really fantastic trailer video for our programs that we were able to do with B-roll footage that we had previously and put together so students can watch that on their own time and get a high level sense of what it's like to be a student here. We also have been doubling down on our social media presence, especially with things like Instagram stories. And a lot of that is tailored to student engagement. So just trying to get some face time with students. We also have been diversifying our presentation offerings. So instead of just the general overview, we've been trying to customize some of these things. These include faculty mock lectures. So our professors presenting an engaging topic to prospective students. This also includes sessions that are specific to families. So not just the prospective students, but their parents and guardians are able to ask questions. We've been doing virtual tours using pictures and video to try to piece together some semblance of what it looks like being on campus, as well as sessions specific to the audience and where they are in their decision process. So admitted students or juniors or transfer students, for example. We've also found that repetition is key, and we've done a lot of learning throughout this process. We are repeating things with variable days of the week and times of the day and duration of our presentation in order to try to capture everybody. As we know, virtual high school can let out at various times for students, and as well, this has given us an opportunity to reach students that are on different time zones. Another thing we've learned is that there are three main factors that are driving a lot of the decisions. These are quality, normalcy, and a sense of purpose. And these were surprising to me and my colleagues because we thought that the primary concern of parents would be safety. And while that is a concern and also some of the typical things we see like financial ability, parents were really looking for some assurance that their student was going to get a quality education even with remote learning. Whereas first year students were less concerned with safety, less concerned with that high quality remote learning, and really wanted to look for a sense of normalcy. These are the same students that have missed some really big milestones in the last year, thinking about graduation and prom and moving on to a college campus. They really want some semblance of that typical college experience. Whereas other students, especially our post-baccalaureate students and our transfer students, they're looking for a renewed sense of purpose. And so getting a lot of outreach from students that have already held a degree, been in the workforce for a while, that are thinking about maybe changing a career path based on things that they've realized or goals that they've redefined during this time of COVID. And so we've been trying to deliver as much information as possible based on these decision drivers to try to help folks make that decision. These include really relying on our current students to provide perspectives. And this can be from, inviting our current students to participate in some of our presentations, connecting prospective students with current students one-on-one via email, and also our handwritten note card campaign from current students to our admitted students, congratulating them about getting into OSU. We are also providing those mock lectures and more of them in an increased variety for parents to hopefully be reassured that we're still able to adapt to remote courses. We're also trying to emphasize student engagement opportunities that exist and that will continue to exist virtually throughout this time. A student said something to me that really stuck out when she was in her first week of classes. She was on campus and I said, "How are things going?" And she said, "It's really hard to meet people when I'm wearing a mask. I can't remember what they look like. They can't remember what I look like from day to day." And that was the first time it really dawned on me that, okay, so even just the process of socializing and making friends and feeling like you're part of a community is different right now. And then again, flexible deadlines and clear communication are really giving folks the time they need and the information that they need to make these decisions. And the third and final lesson here is that our profession and our community will always be essential. We have had an increasing amount of students that have approached us about our online natural resources degree program, trying to earn that while being in their homes around the country. We've had an increase of students that are really just trying to live closer to their goals and their values in life. And I think our community in the College of Forestry really appeals to them. Here on the screen are just a smattering of things that I was able to find through quick Google searching. We're in the news, of course, because after a year of COVID-19, after a really intense fire season, people are looking to us to see what we're doing, to follow our example. And we've really been meeting that through things like our stay-at-home lecture series, through joining forces together to help donate things to our wildland fire crews, as well as folks that have been displaced from fire, to moving things that we do every single year to maybe an online format for the first time. We really have been showing some resiliency. And it's a really great thing to tell students about as a recruiter. And it's also great to hear them offer, how impressed they are with that information, even without me explaining it to them. And so then that brings us to our bottom line, which is all good news for now. Total enrollment is up 5% in the College of Forestry. And you can see some of our incoming class data from fall 2020 here. We've had an increase in basically everything across the board, and Oregon State University as a whole is in really good shape, especially considering the current climate. And so with that, I will turn things over to Nicole to talk about current students.
Thanks, Shannon, and hi, everyone. This is not a virtual background. I am here in the PV Forest Science Complex, and specifically, I am in the Starker Forests classroom, our brand new classroom where we should be hosting these lectures and where we look forward to hosting these lectures in the future. So I just wanted to really lean into making this as real as possible and take this opportunity to thank Starker Forest and Starker family for providing us this amazing space to teach and learn. And share my screen and continue us. So I have the privilege of working here in the College of Forestry with primarily undergraduate students, but I have a good perspective on most of our group. And I'd like to just talk to you about all the ways that we're seeing resiliency in education and higher education this year. So in particular, I just want to familiarize you with who our students are, the ways that we've adapted some of our education during the pandemic, and the supports we're providing for our students, as well as some successes that we've seen. So who are our students? I think a lot of folks have a common perception of who they are, and you might be surprised by who's actually here. So we have 1,305 students enrolled in the College of Forestry at OSU. That's record high enrollment for us. And these data are from fall of 2020. So we were really happy to see that students still elected to come and pursue their education, even in fall when things were kind of uncertain. Our group are 80% undergraduates, folks looking to earn a bachelor's degree, and 20% of our students are here working on a master's or PhD. Our undergraduate students are spread across a pretty diverse pool of majors. We offer 6 undergraduate programs, some that are very familiar to people like forestry and forest engineering, our original programs, and some that are newer like tourism, recreation, and adventure leadership. We offer a great program in natural resources and in renewable materials. And the way our students are distributed across those majors is interesting. You'll see about a quarter of our students studying forestry or forest engineering, and that trail group growing pretty rapidly as that major has been made available. But you'll also notice a huge number of people studying natural resources. And the reason that that looks so large is that of those 674 folks majoring in natural resources, over half are studying online, and they intended to be online. They were online before the pandemic put everything online. So the flexibility that they have to pursue their education from places all over the country and all over the world has really caused our natural resources program to boom. The way our students are distributed across campuses might surprise you as well. A lot of times we think about our traditional campus here in Corvallis, and as you can see in the pie chart, only about half of our students are here in Corvallis with us. Close to, well, 42% are studying online or through distance education. And a not insignificant group, 10% of our students are enrolled at the Cascades campus in Bend. And in Bend, we offer natural resources and tourism, recreation, and adventure leadership. We also have a tiny little cohort of students finishing up a natural resources program over in La Grande in conjunction with Eastern Oregon University. You'll notice in the bar graph that our undergrads are spread across all 4 of those campuses, and we only offer graduate programs in Corvallis and online. So where are our students from? Of course, we are a state institution. Part of our mission is to serve the residents of the state of Oregon, and 48% of our students are Oregon residents. 49% of our students are actually domestic non-residents, so folks from 49 US states and the District of Columbia. If we could just recruit a student from Rhode Island, we'd have everybody covered. 3% of our students are international, and they hail from 23 different countries. In addition, our Oregon residents come from 32 of Oregon's 36 countries, so really broad, diverse representation of our beautiful state. I thought it would be nice to profile one of our students for you who is actually somebody who really fits a mold in the natural resources program. This is Kim Sumner. Kim is a senior studying natural resources through the distance education degree. She lives in Idaho, and she told us about how she spends her time. Kim says, I am the mother of a 7-year-old boy, the fiance of his father, a full-time employee, and a student. I spend my mornings homeschooling my son, the afternoons working at a community college in North Idaho, and the nights until the wee hours going to school. I've been working toward this degree for 25 years now, and the best day of my life will be when I can receive my degree and show my son and my family that all of this hard work has finally amounted to something tangible. I like to share stories like Kim's because I think when we initially consider who college students are, we think of traditional 18 to 22-year-olds living here on campus. And more, we're seeing students of many ages in many places in life coming to pursue their education. One thing that's pretty unique about students in the College of Forestry is the level of financial need that our students see. And so there's 3 factors that we look at that help us determine that. First is the number of students who identify as first generation. You can see 32% of forestry students identify as first generation, meaning that they are the first person in their immediate family to attend or complete college. At OSU, the rate is 24%, so we are significantly higher. The thing about first generation students is that they don't always have somebody at home telling them how things go at college or helping them navigate this really complicated bureaucratic process. And so those are students that have an extra hurdle to overcome in accessing education. They're also students who are often working while studying. And so they're juggling responsibilities, maybe like Kim, of parenting and working and pursuing their education. 40% of our students are Pell eligible. That means that they have been deemed eligible for these nationwide Pell grants, which are given to students who have the highest level of financial need on their FAFSA. And so while OSU might only have 21% of these students, 40% of our students have this high level of financial need. And finally, we have a significant number of transfer students, folks who began elsewhere and came to OSU. Maybe they started at a community college and transferred in after 1 or 2 years. And 43% of our students have taken this pathway. Often they do this because transferring is a way to save money. Courses completed at the community college often cost you a little less money. So if you can do a few things there before you come to us, you can stretch your tuition dollars a bit further. So we already knew that our students had high financial need, and we've been able to address that as best we can through very generous scholarships donated by a variety of folks, probably some who are on the line with us today. And in a typical year, we give $570,000 of scholarships to our students to help support them in their education. But we also know that the pandemic has affected many, many students' financial wellness. And so we have seen a much greater level of financial need, even than the statistics that I've shared here. We have, like everyone, had to adapt, and adapting education during the pandemic has been a key part of our focus. Obviously, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is hands-on learning, getting out into the woods, getting into the lab, getting into the shop to learn while doing, so much of what Reynold was talking about. And we haven't been able to do as much of that as we would like to in the pandemic, but the faculty here in the College of Forestry have risen to the occasion to provide some really outstanding resources to students. I thought I'd highlight a couple of examples. Here you can see teaching remotely. To the left is the classroom that I'm coming to you from. That is the Starker Forest classroom here in our brand new building. Unfortunately, on March 23rd, 2020, when the movers were carrying our boxes into our new building that we've been eagerly awaiting, the stay-at-home order came and the doors were locked, and we've been working at home ever since. So we have a beautiful facility here and you don't see anybody teaching in it. Instead, the people doing the teaching see what you have on the right, which is Zoom and other remote platforms. So there's been a huge adaptation, faculty members filming lectures and videos and really providing innovative content to students in order to provide the classes that they need to make progress and to graduate. We've also been able to maintain some co-curricular activity, things like research in particular. You know, for our graduate students, being involved in research is key to their experience, and they can't make progress toward their degree if they can't be in the lab and be making effort and keeping those projects going. And so we're really proud that we've been able to safely maintain some research projects. And a great example here is actually a first-year student, a brand new freshman in forestry named Xavier. And Xavier is employed in one of our labs, and he shared this. Being able to work as a research assistant my first year at school has been the best experience I've had so far. I work in the Strauss lab, and if I am not in class or taking a nap, I am likely to be found working in the lab. It has been such a valuable opportunity to gain work experience and applications of what I've learned in class. The autonomy I've been trusted with to carry out experiments has been wonderful as well. So Other students like Xavier are having opportunities to engage in research, either in person or virtually. We have a mentored employment program, which offers undergraduate students paid experiences to engage in research with our faculty. And 14 different students were placed this year in research occurring remotely. So we're really proud that we've been able to carry that on. Last but not least, in a program that relies heavily on field experience, we had to figure out how to go digital. And huge kudos again go to our faculty. The example I wanted to share here is of our capstone project for forestry students. In their senior year, the cherry on top is a 6-month project with a team of fellow students to take a piece of land and develop a management plan. And we can't send them out together, and we can't have them here in the classroom together working on that. So rather than having face-to-face, we developed on the right-hand side, and by we, I mean Drs. Woody Chung and Bogdan Strimbu in the Forest Engineering Resources and Management Department, and their graduate assistant, Austin Finster. They have developed a digital forest, and that's what the images are on the right. Those are samples of the digital forest that students are using to carry out their capstone experience. It's our sincere hope we'll get everyone back out into the woods soon, but in the meantime, we are so grateful and so proud to have this opportunity. Supports for students in the pandemic have been incredibly important. We've been providing a lot of different financial support. People heard about the CARES Act, and OSU did receive some funding from the CARES Act and quickly distributed it to financially needy students. You may have heard of the Beaver Cares Fund, which is OSU's version of that, and even the College of Forestry's hardship scholarships. We've been distributing a lot of funds to students to keep them enrolled and keep them making progress toward their education. One of the things we found was that 25% of our students were experiencing issues related to technology, like they don't have a laptop or a device with a webcam that they can access remote learning. So they needed assistance with that. 50% of our students, half our students, have trouble with internet connection. And so we've been providing funding to help people increase their bandwidth, get better internet so that they can stay on track with their education. I will also say that OSU has an extraordinary program in the Human Services Resource Center. That center serves students who are really on the margins in terms of food insecurity and housing insecurity. So the food pantry continues to provide sustenance to our students, and they are still helping students find safe housing when they may not be able to afford it. OSU also reduced a significant number of fees for labs, for building use, et cetera. So wherever we could trim, we have trimmed. Like I said before, our instructors have been incredible about providing supports to students. They've been incredibly compassionate. They're having to show a much greater level of flexibility now than before with all of the various challenges that the pandemic brings. And many of them are intentionally implementing trauma-informed pedagogy to recognize the impact that this stress has on students, on their colleagues, and to move forward in ways that are supportive of that. We've also implemented some virtual services. The folks in our technology group were able to give remote access to our computer labs. So from home, a student can remote into a College of Forestry computer and harvest the software on that machine and harness the processing power and speed that they may not have on their home computer. We've moved all of our academic advising and student assistance online. Shannon was talking about the way that we've got clubs and organizations engaging online, and we're trying to provide everything that we can in these creative new ways. And I will say it has been really hard, but we've had some success, and it's a great opportunity to focus on that. 3 things that I think are huge markers for us are that we have conferred plenty of degrees since the pandemic began. In fact, we have granted 4% more degrees than in this period of 2020 than we did in 2019. So people are still persisting and completing their degrees and getting back out into the workforce. As we mentioned, our enrollment is currently up 5% over where it was in 2019. We're very encouraged by that. It's also consistent with what we see when changes in job market happen and folks have the opportunity to return and complete a degree or advance their education. And last but not least, we have increased access for our students in some ways that we didn't think about before. So we have all of those distant students learning elsewhere, and they didn't always have access to the activities that maybe the student clubs were engaging in. But now that those activities are virtual, anybody, anywhere can participate. So we're really seeing a much broader participation from our students all over the country and the globe in those activities. I hope that's something that we'll be able to continue even after the days of the pandemic are well behind us. In the spirit of saving the very best for last, I think it's most powerful for you to hear from our own students. So I'd love to take the opportunity to turn it over to Wade Christensen.
Hi, so my name's Wade. As Julie had mentioned earlier, I did a 23-year military career. 18 plus years of that was Special Forces. I was Green Beret. And I then was one of those transfer students that Nicole was talking about. I went to UCC for the first couple of years and then up to Oregon State. I graduated last year, and I was one of those people that was looking at jumping into the job market, and then coronavirus shows up, right? And it kind of put a damper on things. And one of the things the military taught me was to, keep moving forward, keep improving your fighting position. So I decided to shift focus from finding a job in a challenging job market to continuing to improve myself with my grad school. So I'm now pursuing a degree in sustainable forest management with a focus in silviculture and fire. I think part of resiliency is perspective, and I've really relied on my military career as a perspective in how to handle this coronavirus. And by that, I mean, I talked to a lot of my fellow classmates, and now as a TA or teacher's assistant, the students that I'm interacting with, it's frustrating to be in a classroom and that kind of stuff. And I just keep telling them, focus on what we can focus on to, move forward. We can't change coronavirus, and so just make the best of what we can. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, so this was life pre-coronavirus. We're, as forestry students, we're out in the woods and coring trees, measuring trees, and it was pretty nice. Like it was what I joined or what I went to college for, and getting that hands-on and getting dirty, and it was, I don't know, it was just what I expected, and I was really looking forward to continuing with that, right? But like I said, with coronavirus, you can't really handle it, and things changed. So with that change, Nicole kind of stole my thunder on it. Next slide, please. We switched to this online timber cruising for our capstone project, and it was a totally foreign idea to us, but I have to give credit to our professors, the ability for them to adapt. And this was in spring break, so they had 1 week to create a digital forest for us and continue that process of education. And again, we went back to talking to students, and there was this idea that we're missing out because we're online. We're not walking through the woods and measuring trees. But when you look at that project was 40 acres, you're going to measure a couple hundred trees in a career that hopefully you're measuring thousands of trees, tens of thousands of trees. So you're not really getting set back that much on that, by missing out on this. But we should have learned lessons as far as, creative thinking, taking the example from our professors. And then I've taken that as an example as that TA. Some of the things that we've experienced here is a lot of the students now have Discord. It's this, I think it's a gaming app that you use for communication. And the professor that I teach with, Dr. Cushing, and the other TA, we kind of discussed, like, you got to go to where the students are at and communicate with them on their platform. So we're all pretty active on like Discord solely for the purpose of reaching the students that are having questions. And I had the fortune, and this is pre-coronavirus, some of my TAs, you know, I have my daughter who's, you know, one of the benefits of coronavirus is I get these, you know, little disturbances, you know, sometimes during class of her coming in and wanting to talk to the class with me. But, you know, being a dad and dealing with all that, you know, I would have to meet TAs at, you know, 7 o'clock in their office at night, or, you know, early in the morning before my classes started. With coronavirus, you know, they hit me on Discord, and I can, you know, jump into a Zoom call with them and hopefully help them with their problems. So there's definitely some disadvantages. I've struggled with some of the classes that are more, you know, computer based, that, you know, it would be easy in class, you know, like, where do you touch that button to make this happen, you know. But there's also the added advantage of flexibility, and, you know, for me, being able to engage a little bit more with my family. And then I guess the last thing I try to convey to people is, you know, with that, you know, we just have to make the best of what we've got and continue moving forward with, you know, whatever's thrown at us. You know, that's what we can control, is how we handle the situation. Thank you.
Hi all, I'm Mariel King. I am the watershed specialist for the Coos SWCD, and I am an OSU alum. I graduated last spring, and yeah, next slide. To start off with, going into my senior year, I obviously didn't know we were heading into a world pandemic, but I was trying to graduate within 4 years, so I was taking a higher credit load both my junior and senior year. So I was expecting not to have much socializing and to be much more in a study world. But I was able to, you know, find times to join friends for a drink or to participate in the Fish and Wildlife Club fish print night, which was awesome. And I was all set up to, the way I designed my classes was that I would take my harder classes, my fall and winter term, and spring term, I would have a fun outdoors lab-centered classes. So to end college on a high note. Little did I know that COVID was about to hit. Next slide, please. So after that, mid-COVID, this was when what I like to call dog heaven, at least for my dog, and I imagine most people who own dogs. I was expecting to be outside studying flowers, soil profiles, etc. Ended up with my face in a laptop and my dog trying to invade my personal space almost all the time. And this is really where I started to feel the effects of COVID in my academic life. OSU and the instructors here do a really great job of incorporating hands-on learning in our classes. This is something I really appreciate and was very thankful for throughout my whole time at OSU. So not being able to do these field trips and to go out and not to be able to go outside with like my cohorts, it really threw me for a trip. I found myself not being as interested in some of the topics that I would really enjoy learning about. I found myself not absorbing as much information that I normally would. I think this was both a combination of the instructors having a short turnaround of finding out that they would be teaching online. I think they found out, you know, a few weeks before spring break, and yeah, it's a lot to turn an in-person class into a online engaging class. And so I tried my best to go with it, but you know, it was definitely a challenge. And on top of all of this, I was also looking for my next steps as I was graduating that term. I had a lot of interviews set up. They were all moved online. It was interesting enough though that these online Zoom classes actually helped me prepare for those interviews that would be online, because it made me comfortable talking to a computer basically. And so to be able to be comfortable with that, that was really important. And I got a lot of good feedback from the people that I was interviewing with, that it was personable and et cetera, which I think those classes and talking with my peers online, you know, helped prepare for that. But a lot of those jobs ended up just getting canceled. There was, you know, lack of funding, resources had to be sent in the COVID direction. And so I was really starting to like wonder what I would be doing. But luckily I had a lot of good mentors through the College of Forestry, and that mentorship program that was mentioned earlier, I think is really valuable. And if you can have the opportunity to participate in it as a mentor or a mentee, I really highly suggest you do that. It's very impactful for, I think, both people. I think everybody gets a lot out of that connection. And so I had spent a lot of time on the South Coast, and I was able to develop those relationships enough to be able to land a job, the job that I have currently with the Coos SWCD in July, when things kind of opened up a little bit. And I was able to get trained and then moved on to working in this online situation. Through these difficulties, there were still a lot of upsides to my last term and to living with life and living in COVID life. I took advantage of living really close to MLK Junior Park in Northern Corvallis. It's a nice natural area, and I was able to supplement my online learning with just going on walks and testing myself about what I was seeing. I would try to ID flowers around the park. I would try to I would dig up soil and try to texture soil, read soil profiles, you know, whatever, there's a wetland there, so I would try to synthesize wetland processes, anything that kind of got me outside and thinking, which is really where I do my best work. And overall, reflecting with my time at OSU and for preparation for this talk, I really found myself thinking about how important it is to be a self-starter and to take opportunities and challenges as they arise, and know that you have a support system behind you. I left out that out of those 5 classes I was taking my last term, I knew almost all the kids in all of the classes but one. I also had my best friend in one of my harder classes. And while my peers and I didn't see each other directly during COVID, we were able to chat over Zoom. If we were having problems in our courses, we could you know, text each other, call each other, and we could still facilitate helping each other out. I wasn't just floating in my own little world. I already had my support system in place, and I was able to, you know, keep on keeping on. And I was able to graduate with honors last spring. Next slide, please. This brings me to my last slide and photo. This is Cape Ergo in Coos Bay. Whenever I think about resistance and resilience to disturbance, I often think about coastlines and riparian areas, but often I think about this picture specifically. I think about this tree that is nearly horizontal, hanging off the edge of a cliff, but yet it still survives. It takes all the abuse of intense winds, king tides, torrential downpours, but yet it still survives. And it does not survive alone. It survives because of the interdependent relationships it has developed from the time of its inception. The microbes in the soil with the other flora and fauna in the area. And just like as people, if we take the time to build our relationships and a support system, I truly believe we'll be able to bounce back from all these unexpected hurdles that life throws our way. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much. Thank you for everyone for putting this on. This has been great.
Thanks, Mariel. And our theme, resilience in the face of disturbance, learning from disasters. I think you hopefully today saw that snapshot of the panelists that really brought us a snapshot of what it's looking like as we've pivoted during these disasters, but also during the pandemics and during these different disturbances, and really can see the amazing things that people are still doing and the amazing things even the college is responding to, and the way ODE is responding. So we will have some time for Q&A if you've been putting those in the Q&A button. Also wanted to reach out here with some contact information. If we don't get through all your questions, or some of you asked to connect with us, here is where you can do it. We also know some of you might be interested in the SAF and CF credits, and that keyword is SLS education. And we'll be putting that contact information in the chat and directions on that. So again, SLS education. And I think at this point, we'll stop the screen share and bring all of our panelists back. We have some great questions that have come in. And the first one, I think we'll go to with Nicole. And Nicole, with the increased enrollment, how close are we to capacity in the college? Are there areas that could use more students, and what are you doing to increase enrollment in those areas?
So we did have record enrollment growth in fall 20, but we've been on a pretty consistent growth trajectory for about 10 or 12 years, usually seeing 1, 2, or 3% increase year to year. So this is planned growth, and we're happy to see it. We just got a little uptick here in the fall. There are certainly some majors that are bigger and majors that are smaller. I think they're kind of hidden gems. You know, the Renewable Materials program is a great example of something that is really unique, allowing students to study sustainable ways to use wood and other renewable resources like bamboo and hemp in replacing carbon-based products in our marketplace. And that's really innovative, and that really appeals to students who are interested in sustainability and green products. And I know that Shannon definitely promotes that program when she's out, as do others from that program. It's really just about getting people aware that those opportunities are available. In fact, we don't see as many students start in the College of Forestry when they arrive at OSU, but we see lots of students change their majors into the College of Forestry shortly after they get here, because they discovered that I don't have to be an engineer. I could be a forest engineer. I could do engineering outside, or I can study renewable materials, or I can study tourism and recreation and adventure leadership. So we're happy to have folks spread the word about those programs. No danger of us filling up anytime soon.
Good to know. And I'm sure if that is the case, we'd love to add on, right? That would be a great, even though it's just a new building already. So maybe to Wade and Mariel, really appreciate you as students and recent graduates being brave to come and share your story. And I really appreciate the snapshot of where you are. And I know your journey is just continuing, and really the first part of your entry. And one of the questions we have a call, someone who's an instructor also at a community college, and she asked, what advice do you have for instructors who have transitioned normally field-based classes to remote online delivery? What have you liked the most or least? And so maybe if you can share some of those things that you really liked from your classes. And Wade, maybe if you could start.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the class, but anything that kind of gives the students a touch of nature, a touch of outside. You may have to be a little bit more creative, but one of the examples, I took a GIS class, and I guess this was my own personal endeavor to get into nature, but I could have walked around my neighborhood and just taken GPS points, but I drove out to where I'd worked in the summer and got out in the woods, and I found a Douglas fir patch, and then I went to an oak patch, and then had that was part of the thing, was figuring out what kind of land cover there was. So just anything that allows them to get out, even if it's in a park and you're identifying trees along a stream or something. The thing I like the least is just day in and day out of PowerPoint. That just kind of gets old. So even anything that gives some sort of activity to stimulate that mind, I think is better than just pure PowerPoint delivery.
Great, good ideas. Mariel, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I actually, last spring, I took a soil morphology class, and I was heavily supposed to be lab-based, and as that wasn't realistic anymore, my instructor actually, Rebecca Lambert, I believe, from the Crop and Soil Department, she and her GA went out, and they sent us all a huge box of soils. They sent us soils from every single profile, every single horizon that we would have seen on those field trips. They then went out to each one of those labs and recorded the exact lab that we would have done in person. Then we went through and we were able to have those hands-on materials to keep learning about what we were seeing in those videos. That was amazing. I know I took quite a few other lab classes. None of them did it like that. And that was truly, truly beneficial. And I feel like I learned the most in that class that term. So yeah, if you can do, however you can get people's hands-on learning, I think that is really the way to do it.
Great suggestions. Reynold, this one's for you. Thanks for the overview about high schools and the CTE. With over 50 high schools now getting into forestry, is there room for expansion, and how do we help in that urban area, the Portland Metro, get even more programs engaged?
Great conversation. The most pivotal point is the administration to say we're ready to move. As an industry partner, reaching out to the school boards, the school administration, and letting them know about career opportunities that exist. One of the difficulties, and I don't want to get too geeky, but one of the difficulties as it relates to community colleges and high schools in putting together a program is they look at labor market indicators. They're called LMI, and it's data through the employment department and economic data around where are the jobs, what are the needs. A lot of the green industry jobs that we represent are leery of utilizing the employment department for labor replenishment. So in that, we're not showing up as labor market indicators. So as industry personnel to be sharing with the school system, is there an opportunity to participate in a career fair to expose career opportunities that exist, even the growth of natural resource programs. So we do have a couple, just a couple, inside Metro Portland, but not a full representation of what the demand is. And then even in urban arboriculture and urban forestry opportunities that exist. So industry partners, be present and engage, be willing to engage in that conversation. And there is still continued growth opportunities, even in our rural schools. I was sitting in a school system and an administrator said, there's just no opportunities. And while we were in that small school, the building rattled 5-6 times. And I said, do you feel that every time? And she's like, what? And I said, that's a timber truck. That is an occupation. And there's occupations on both sides of that, and there's dollar values going down. Even though you don't have a Home Depot, a Walmart, a Costco in your community, there is economic opportunities and resource utilization that can occur. And then that turned the light bulb on, and she said, oh, how can we connect with them? And I'm like, I'm glad you asked. So yes, the collaborative effort.
Thanks, Reynold. So I saved this one kind of as a last something for the whole panel to think about. I don't know if we'll have a specific answer, but so Bob Zybeck has shared with us the past 4 years, our Oregon-based nonprofit Oregon Websites Watersheds has been creating online distance learning websites and virtual field trips with the Southwest Oregon Community College for their spring term with a focus on the Elliott State Forest. Our question is, how might we collaborate more with ODE, OFRE, ONREP, I think even OSU, to get those maybe statewide and used throughout the state, the community college and university purposes. And Pelani Nurmi has a similar question about, she teaches at Mount Hood Community College, and she'd love to connect more with partners in the K-12 and the university. So really it comes to these questions about systems and connections. And I just shared a few snippets of people at the very beginning of my slide. I think that could have taken me 2 hours if I could have shared all the way that people are amazing in this state and have pivoted and what they've done to try and keep sharing their passion. But any thoughts thinking about those questions and thinking about connection at a time where I think social distance is making us feel less connected and less crossing paths than maybe we have before at like some of these meetings and conferences. So any thought on how to help keep those connections or where we go from here and thinking about that?
I can start off, especially because, Pelani, I would love to talk to you about Mount Hood Community College, but it really does seem like this this industry is a community, it's a family, and it really does rely on relationships. And so I think one important thing I try to make sure that all of my partners know is that they can always approach me with a question about OSU, even if it's not about the College of Forestry, or even if it's not the right question for me. I'll help connect and I'll help find that person. And making those kind of relationships and building those over time makes all of our disparate parts seem to click a little bit better, because we do have so many resources out there. And sometimes it's hard for educators. It's also hard for students to figure out where they start. And so I've felt that as well. And really, sometimes it comes down to just trying to make it a little bit more personal. And so with that said, you all have my email address.
Yes,
I would give the same. I would say the same. Reach out to me. We do have the 6 community college partners that are part of the statewide program of study. Each of those community college partners connect in strengthening the relationship that we have with Mount Hood, which we do have that relationship. I think just heightening it and where the outreach touch points are to connect with students.
Thanks, Reynold. Well, with that, our time has come to a close, and I really want to appreciate everybody that's here with us, and even some K9s that have joined us. So we all remember that in this new time. So just wanted to remind everyone, next week, on March 3rd, the next Starker Lecture Series will be a focus on economics. And so please join us on that day for it'll be about the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 Labor Day fires have had major economic impacts on Oregon's forest sector. Our speakers represent small and large Oregon land and processing facilities, owners, and a major forestry consultant. They will discuss the impact and how the Oregon forest sector is responding to them. So please join us on that on March 3rd or also on March 10th, and you can register online. And if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to reach out to the panelists. We all look forward to continuing this conversation. And thanks again to all the panelists. We really appreciate your time and insights, and good luck to our students and recent graduates on their path forward. And want to thank everybody for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.